What's up, everybody? Let's see what's going on here. How are we doing today? It's been a fat minute since I've been able to do any amount of live streaming. Let's see. Real quick. Want to make sure everything's working properly. One minute here. Alrighty. Just checking the audio real quick. Testing. Alrighty. Just checking the. Okay. So I think. Real quick. Test. I think we should be good. Cause audio sucks sometimes. That's okay. Get this all figured out here. It's been a minute since I've done any streaming, so it's kind of like I'm all over the place right now, but we will get there. Alrighty, folks. So currently, if you've been living under a rock or haven't seen any of my update videos, the big thing I've been working on is finishing the main modeling for the coaches, and that has been accomplished. So we got that taken care of. There's a Horizon baggage coach. There is a, what's it called? Cafe. Or the regular diner. The club dinette, so that's where it's just both sides have the tables, and then the dinette has first class seating, and then the diner in the back of the coach. And then there's the main coach, of course, and I might at some point, just for the heck of it, make a Horizon cab car. I don't know yet. We will see about that. So anywho, one of the things we're currently working on doing right now is modeling the HEP and MU receptacle connections. So this is kind of like when the coaches are connected to each other, that they kind of connect up and everything. So all I'm doing right now at this point is just checking to make sure everything kind of looks natural, setting the hoses right, and getting the receptacles and plugs all buttoned up. So let's see here. We're gonna convert this to an editable poly. I don't expect that this is gonna take us very long to do, because I've got most of it basically finished up. Yeah, it would complete the circle, wouldn't it? Doing a cab car. And then, well, I mean, that'll probably just start the never-ending cycle of making the Comet cars for freaking Metro North and all those railroads. It's just one of those things you're going to be going back and forth with. We'll see about it, though. I mean, it's definitely a possibility. I'm getting to a point where all of these are about done. So I'm kind of like, I gotta start finding my next project here. I just want to make that a little less of an angle there. So I hope everything is working properly with the chat system, with my audio, and everything. Like I said, it's been a minute since I've done any amount of live streaming on my channel, so I'm hoping to get back into it now that my internet is looking good again. So this is part of the mapping process. A real quick and easy way to do hoses is this thing called peel. Yeah, no, I do have some pretty good base models to go off of at this point. The main issue would be getting the underbody details. I have worked for the last probably 6 years now gathering and finding reference photos that really show the underbody details of the Horizon coach car, these specific ones that Amtrak uses. And let me tell you, that's been hard. I mean, I didn't start finding good reference photos for the bogies until like last semester. So it's just one of those things that's like really hard to do. So you want, you know, it all depends on like what you're looking for out of a model. So I know a lot of people, they really like the highly detailed underbody carriages or whatever. And they're great to an extent. I mean, you start blasting a bunch of random stuff down there and it's like it's really hard to justify a lot of that simply because you're adding a bunch of stuff that just isn't going to be seen. At the same time, it's like it's good to have it, depending, because there's some camera views that you can get real up close and personal with different details. So I think there's the happy medium to figuring out good underbody detail work. But that is besides the point right now. I would have to find some good reference photos that really show off like what's going on underneath the underbody. I know it can't be entirely too different from the base Horizon coach. I'll see if I'm on another half hour. You know, I'm streaming to basically one person anyways, so it's like, you know, it's what it is. But, you know, back to the discussion on underbody details that I just randomly brought up out of nowhere. It's and also drive safe, sir. Don't get into an accident. It shouldn't be entirely too different from the base Horizon that Amtrak uses. Of course, you know, those are mainly commuter coaches. These are more of the long distance type, so they're gonna have the bathrooms, they're gonna have waste tanks, they're gonna obviously need water tanks. I think the Comet cars are a different story because they're used for, you know, commuter revenue service. And they're going to be less used for those long hauls and more just trying to get people where they got to go. So the moral of this story is that I would like to do those coaches. I think it would be really fun and kind of exciting to not only have these Horizons, but have some good high quality, you know, commuter equipment too. So hopefully I can provide that at some point. We will see. my next project, though, I'm really thinking about doing like a locomotive or something. Spice it up. I think that would be pretty fun to do. Alrighty. So really, all I'm doing for this one right now is simply getting things set up so that I have kind of a baseline to go off of. I don't necessarily know how this is all going to translate over into trains when it does. So that's going to be kind of the fun part of this guessing game. So and that's all this is. It's just a guessing game right now. I have a script guy who's going to be doing some of the script work. He's going to be helping me out getting this thing in game, getting some stuff figured out to make it work properly. So I'm really excited to have him, you know, contributing with this project. And I've helped him out. I've provided a couple meshes so that he's currently working on an Amfleet coach. It's a really awesome coach. Got a lot of scripting and a lot of details to it. You know. So let's see if I can find his YouTube channel. I'm bad at remembering names. Oh yeah. So if you look up Ashton Gaham, I think that's how you pronounce it. My apologies, Ashton. If you look him up, you'll see some of his demos that he's been doing, showing off some of his script work. So it's a nice collaboration, getting to kind of help out on that side of things and having him help me out on other sides of things. So once he gives me the information that I need, I can do my mesh editing and get all this kind of buttoned up and figured out. But until then, we're simply just getting this set up enough that this all works out nicely. So very, very simple mapping on these receptacle plugs, just because there wasn't really much of a need to go all out with them, to be honest. Just is what it is right now. So there it is. That's mapped. And now just to mess around with it and see how it all looks together. I think there we go. So from what I understand too, that this only really applies to one side of the coach. So we have our HEP receptacles right here that are plugged into each other, and then over here we have the MU receptacles that are also plugged into each other. So, well, one of them's MU, one of them's comms. So, kind of a fun little deal. Right there. So, it's just kind of a little showcase of what's in the works. This is really all we need right now. So, pretty good looking setup here. Select all that, we'll give it a nice gray texture. We do a quick little render on that. So really now this is about trying to figure out what the next step is, what the next project is. And that is going to be a fun deal to work on. So far all the coach variants, I got them into Substance Painter, and I baked the texture meshes, or the texture files, the ambient occlusion and everything. So I got those sent off to the texture guy, and he is going to be working on painting them up, making them look like actual Amtrak coaches. So that is pretty exciting. The one thing I'm trying to figure out right now is if they use the MU and comms cable on both ends of the coach or simply just the one end, as that is something I do not know. In order to find out, I have to get a good side view of a coach car coupled up. So let's see. Yeah. Interesting. A lot of interesting stuff here. So yeah, that's pretty neat. Alrighty, so that's done. As far as that goes. Let's do some looking at some stuff. Since I don't really have a whole lot going on at the moment. Yeah. Whatever. Ah, yes. So this is an early version of the bogey that I made. Fantastic. Let's see, we'll put a skylight in here just for fun. Oh, let's do orthographic. Ooh, that is bright as heck too. Turn that down. Be a little more visible. Yeah, so this was an earlier version of the bogey. It wasn't bad by any means, but I could have done better. And of course, the smoothing groups I didn't do, and I didn't really know how excuse me, how to do them really well. So yeah, I mean, this is what y'all almost got stuck with for a second. So that's apparently 2.0. Delete later. What's this? Told me to delete later. And I forget why I did. Here it is. I don't know why I put down to delete later. Oh, I think I know why. I just wanted to get some renders. So yeah, we will go ahead and actually delete that. The next thing, Amtrak Horizon V3. We'll take a look at that. I think it's fun going back through some of the older models and just kind of seeing, you know, where we started and where we're at now. A lot of interesting stuff. Oh wow. Yeah. This thing was a royal mess. Running into constant issues. of course, this is sort of what sprouted off a lot of advancements. I mean, yeah, so here we are still using the springs. So this is the Bogey 2.0 or whatever. Well, it'll probably help too if I do that. Get us out of perspective and put us in orthographic. Do I have a skylight put in here? I doubt it. So I'll just stick with standard right now, since it doesn't mess around with the shading. But it will mess around with our camera angles. So yeah, forgot who gave me that coupler mesh to use. Super basic deal. And I mean, back when I was working on the coach, I was realizing that couplers were weird and hard to sort of follow along with and model, so I never really bothered with it. So, oh, and we'll also see this is where I started a dinette variant of the coach, where I thought I knew what I was doing with the underbody details, but I really didn't know what I was doing with the underbody details. So yeah, you can just see there's a hoopla of messes going on. Still though, I mean, decent coach for what it was. Definitely could have done a lot of things better, which is why, again, this prompts a lot of remodeling. A really basic coupler cut bar, really basic and simple MU receptacles and HEP receptacles going on. You know, there's no corrugation on the roof, just random jazz going on. The smoothing groups were not utilized very well. I mean, even here, we'll look at this. Yeah, there's this thing called smoothing groups. Learn to use them in 3ds Max. I think that's one area I was sorely lacking in when I started modeling a lot of this stuff. So a lot of it looks janky and jagged and everything. There's no depth to these window frames either. And again, when I was originally working on this, all of this in total right now, in this entire scene, multiple coach bodies, multiple spacers, and everything that I've used, comes up to about 63,385 polygons for a coach. Oh yeah, and an extra unit compressor sitting by. So all of that comes down to a lot of polys, and this is almost done too. So I was being conservative about it, trying to figure out, you know, trying to keep polys down, and then literally stopped giving a crap about it. But I think, so that's the file that I've really used to get all of my stuff from, the roots of the Horizon coach. Now, we're going to look at Club Dinette. I'm fairly certain I know what this is. So I have them named Club Dinette, Dinette, Coach. But then I have files that are named Dinette Body, Club Dinette Body, Coach Body. So yeah, there's a lot of issues going on with this. So this is kind of like my beginning roots of like getting the window set up for each of these cars. So this is, yeah, Club Dinette. You can see there's a lot of issues with the smoothing groups that I really needed to work on and fix. There's no interior or anything substantial to it. I mean, even the vestibules are fairly bland and straightforward, which again, you know, just because I say something's bland, straightforward, you know, if you're modeling, don't be distraught by any of this. So, yeah, that's honestly, that is nothing. Okay, so we'll delete that thing. So looking at this file called Dynet, this is probably another one we can delete. Yeah, there's a lot of things that prompted a lot of remodeling. And one thing I quickly learned is that I wanted to do all of these coaches like in succession of each other. So here it is again. The reason why these files only got this far is because I took the coach body and said I need to remodel everything. Not everything, but a good portion of the coach. Here's the Horizon baggage body. So the way it works is the file that I'm using as the source file for that car and the finished product is labeled body. And I forget why exactly I started doing that, but I did. So this is the Horizon baggage, or the HOR bag for short. Oh yeah. So, you know, we're looking at a lot of updates to this version of the coach. The body, well, so I'll get into the updates when we actually look at the coach variant itself rather than these sub-variants of the same coach. What's up, Ashton? How you doing? I probably mispronounced your name horribly, and I apologize for that, brother. So, here's what we're looking at. Basic underbody detailing. I just deleted a bunch of stuff, kept the main stuff. Some electrical equipment, the air reservoir equipment, and all the brakes and everything. So, you know, got all of that going. Again, keep it simple, stupid. It's a baggage car, you know. So, but not bad. It still maintains a lot of the details, like inside of the vestibule. It has an interior that you'll be able to peek inside, but not go inside. There's not a lot really going on to it. Again, it's a baggage car. Plus, you know, it's got the updated coupler mesh, updated grab irons and everything. So I've learned a lot of new methods for doing this. And another big thing about this now, you'll notice that this baggage car has 88,323 polygons compared to what would have been like the finished product at 63,000, probably a couple thousand less polygons. Yeah, games can handle that a lot better. And you'll notice the sectioning off of the coach body in the wireframe. You can kind of see, like, this is a section right here, kind of like that. And that is kind of those just anchoring points. So when I put the windows in, I gotta have those anchoring points. So, and you'll see this right here. This is the anchoring points for the windows on the doors. So I have to have those sectioned off so that I can attach all and weld all the vertices. So just a neat little thing. This one is labeled Horizon Bogies 2.0. I think I know what this is, because I go through these periodically, but sometimes I forget what they are. So I think we're going to look at what was the first upgrade. This is literally 2.0 for my bogies. That is fine. All of that is fine. Yes. This is literally Horizon Bogey 2.0. You can see all the booleans that I was doing. It was crap. You know, I didn't know what I was doing. So a friend of mine who's now at JR Really cool guy. Helped me out by providing these bogies for a Metroliner. So he did a basic job on this, and this is when we're both like basic modelers, so keep that in mind. We were learning the craft and everything. But it was a good basis, and he sent them to me to kind of use on my coach and then to try and figure out like my own bogies, get the shape right, and kind of see what other people were doing. So he lent me those, and then from there I started kind of just going off on my own and making little changes here and there. So very basic, very simple, very, you know, whatever. You see, here's my excuse for the the brake calipers. A little weird, um, you know, get your mind out of the gutter. So you see, here's what I did to make it. I used the line tool to trace this out and then go from there. And interestingly enough, that's not really how I do it anymore. I do what's known as polygon modeling or planar modeling, and it's like, and you've seen me do this if you look at the making the MU cables, where you start out with a plane and you build the model off of that plane. So I did something very similar with the next set of bogies, and I'll show you that. But I still use the bullion feature. So essentially I ended up with this shape, and then I used the bullion, not pro bullion. You can use pro bullion. I found regular bullion is a lot less intrusive and aggressive and buggy than pro bullion. So pro bullion is not the way to go, in my opinion. But to each their own, and it also depends on how you set up the model. I just found regular bullion works perfectly for what I do. So, anywho, continuing the rambling. So I made my own set of wheels and everything. So everything on this bogie is mine, except for this set of bogies, or this set right here. This was again provided for me with permission to kind of look it over, but I didn't steal anything off of that. So the wheels, I think I actually made mine lower poly than those. I don't know. Something, yeah, I did something like that. So I didn't use anything off of that. I wanted to make everything from scratch. I wanted to make everything my own. So this was literally Bogie 2.0. We might have some time to go look at Bogie 1.0, my very first version of these bogies. But again, you can see very basic, use the springs and everything. Here's the weirdly jank modded jeez whiz, I don't even know how to explain it. These caps for the springs. Very fun, very stupid, just is what it is. So that was the first upgrade from what I had. So the next upgrade, the other Amtrak Horizon Bogie 2.0 that we looked at earlier, was just kind of little minor changes to that same bogie just to make it a little bit better, like the springs and everything. Here's the Club Dinette body. We're going to look at that real quick. What are more objects is isolated? Yeah, so you can see this is what I do for the material IDs and everything. What I'll do real quick, just to make this a little easier to view, I'll just make everything that. So more or less, this is the same as, I mean, we'll get through everything. So this is the Club Dinette. This is what it actually turned into. And again, we'll go into some of the differences, some of the changes, because I'm just going down the list right now. So you remember looking at the Club Dinette body. Well, a lot of changes have happened where, there's a fully modeled interior, which is pretty awesome. I really like where this went. Kind of a fun deal to just look at, and there's a lot going on with this model. A lot on the underbody, some basic stuff, some not so basic stuff. A lot of what I would consider legacy details that I felt are good enough for being underbody details. Not a lot really going on with them, not a lot to really mess with and deal with. So the goal for this also, I might have interior cameras for the Horizon Coach Car, but we're really not going to be having the fully modeled interior where you can like sit down, open doors, and this and that. I want to keep it simple. A lot of people are going to spend a lot more time in the cab of a train or doing drive-bys or whatever. So again, don't want to go too crazy with this. We're sitting at 114,730 polygons, or 240,798 tries, which is, I think, what Trains works in. So we just got a lot of updated goodies that are, finally a part of this coach car. Got a lot to look at, a lot of eye candy, and it's just, it's been a fun project to look at. So that's the Club Dinette. I'm not going to save that because I have to keep the material IDs. Here's the Horizon Coach body. So two things kind of came into my head, and I'm going to open up this other file too, and we'll look at both of them together. Also, the reason, excuse me. So the reason why the wheels are sitting below is for baking the textures in Substance Painter. Okay. So Horizon Coach. This is basically one of the earlier versions of the completed version that gets really confusing. So I have redone this coach 100 bazillion times. Really though, it comes down to several different phases. So there's the Gen 1 phase where I actually got it buttoned up, textured, everything modeled and mapped. So that was like version 1.0. And then I started updating, upgrading, doing a bunch of stuff, and that started version 2.0. And then probably, as it stands, this is version 4.0, I want to say. I think one dead giveaway of that is the window wells. So yes, this is version 4.0. And I'll explain. So these window corrugations actually have some, instead of being one solid straight through piece, they actually have kind of the lip that would be apparent with the actual interior of the coach. So if I hide that, I don't have the back faces. But yeah, you can kind of see that here. It's got the different kind of layers to it, just to add some depth. And of course, no smoothing groups, because I'm an idiot for not doing smoothing groups. Anywho, so yeah, you can see here's all the different coach stuff. A lot of things were upgraded, a lot of things were fixed and changed. I mean, this is where I get my HEP cables and everything from, because I actually worked that out. So, anywho, So we're gonna see a lot of like legacy stuff, but also updated stuff on this version of the coach. So a lot of interesting stuff. So legacy wise, most of the underbody details are what I would consider to be legacy meshes with the Horizon. Yeah, so we have the MU receptacles and the HEP receptacles. Those are still, that's still a legacy item. Some things changed. I put the lip up there. Yeah, I mean, this is definitely a legacy item as well. Just a lot of old, kind of outdated stuff for the coach. Not necessarily a bad thing, it's just kind of like, you know, a lot of old stuff. The underbody looks pretty good, and again, this is a passable model, what we're looking at. Is this the updated frame? I want to say that is the updated frame for the bogies. Yeah, so this is bogie version officially 3.0. And what started happening is, as I got into the different bogie versions, I started just saving the bogies in the actual coach mesh. So it's fun little story time with that, you know. Anyway, so this is officially 3.0. A lot of changes happened with this bogie set to make it look a little more realistic, trying to get the form right. So on the original 2.0 version, from this slant, it basically just went straight up and then curved around instead of having this flat spot at the top. The bearings and everything, I updated the bearing caps so that it had this style instead of my weird lower polygon style. Other than that, you know, everything was kind of made to mesh a little bit better. So you can kind of see I got all these anchoring points and everything. Unfortunately for me, I was stupid and forgot to delete that center line, which I really should have done. But this wasn't going to be the final version of the bogie, so guess what? It doesn't really matter at this point. And a very lower polygon brake rotors. So again, a very basic version of the bogie. You know, these clips just is a box, and this thing is just a thing, you know. So really, oh no, I did something. So yeah, really just a lot of basic stuff. I updated, again, just the body of it and everything. Some good underbody details I started adding on were the actual kind of HEP, like here's where the cables go, this is what they do sort of thing. But that also changed in later versions of the coach. Another thing that was new in this version of the Horizon is the coupler mesh. So I took it on myself to actually model my own dang coupler, and for a first go at it, it wasn't horrible, to be honest. A lot of good stuff going on, a lot of great fun stuff, learning curves, and just a pain in my butt in general. So I'll show you this. So you see I'm starting to get the hang of smoothing groups, kind of, but the way I made this mesh, it was sort of broken. So first detail here is this little pocket up here on the actual real deal doesn't exist on the bottom, so I mirrored that like an idiot. I mean, you're not an idiot if you did it, but I'm an idiot because I did it. And everything was just kind of simply modeled in, you know. I didn't even do the whole knuckle. The knuckle's still separate, but I didn't do the whole thing. And again, smoothing groups, or lack thereof, you know. And then I had this weird little pocket doodad thing. It worked. It worked, and for all intents and purposes, it was a good coupler. It just had a lot of smoothing group issues. So that, we'll get into that here. This is a legacy item too, this gate here. All the grab irons on this are all legacy, what I consider to be legacy, you know, from original versions of this coach. I think it's the same deal too with the stairs here. Those are going to all be legacy. But started getting more detailed with the mesh, and I started realizing, I mean, like, I'm adding stuff like this, the brake plungers, and I started realizing I can go somewhere a little bit further with this and I can get away with it. And this is also about the time I started learning that I could be a little less conservative with the polygons. And then another big thing, you can blame someone on Facebook for me going back and redesigning this. Or you can thank him too, because, I mean, I'm going to thank him. He helped me to grow and become a better modeler. He pointed out these class lights, or these marker lights, were too big. And to be honest, they weren't modeled very well either. I did a poor job. They're multiple pieces that really shouldn't have been multiple pieces. And it just took up a lot of space mapping stuff. So another good reason to try and make everything one piece as possible. You know, so here, this whole bottom section, if I pop this up, that's one piece. That's one piece. That's one piece. That's one piece, that's one piece, that's one piece, that's all, you know, one piece, which is a lot better than what it used to be, where this little cut half was basically one piece. Oh yeah, you can also see where the mesh is broken in multiple places. Even after redoing the whole body mesh twice, I still ran into a bunch of issues that I eventually fixed. But you start finding them when you're mapping stuff. You'll see random areas of just junk. You're like, where did that come from? Another legacy item were still these things, and the door handles. Those were legacy items. So that's about the time I started realizing I could do a whole lot better with this thing. And I decided to do just that. I was like, look, there's a challenge. I'm excited to take it on and learn and see, you know, what was possible. So that prompted a lot of major upgrades to the meshes, and I don't mean just the coach mesh, I mean all of the meshes, except, again, there's still going to be some legacy items, because rather than going through and changing them all for no apparent reason whatsoever, I was like, you know what, we're going to go and we're going to change the things that need to be changed, but not really worry about what doesn't need to be messed with. So one of the first major things that I wanted to do is I wanted to fix the body. The body had a lot of issues with smoothing groups, with the way I had it sectioned off, and the way I had designed it. So I needed to change it and I needed to fix it. So that was the first thing on the list of things to do. And interestingly enough, if I go to my renders, I can probably actually find those original renders. Oh yeah. So here's a good one of me working on the coach beforehand. So that is from the last file that we looked at with all the legacy items on it. The Bogey 3.0, and the big class lights. So that's how you can kind of decipher, like, this has the big class lights, or, yeah, the class lights, and the weird looking bogey things. So then we go to here. This basically shows off the coupler that I just did, and you'll see lack of smoothing groups, lack of a lot of stuff going on. So then 420 blaze it. Again, a lot of just legacy stuff, some beauty shots of the coach. And I started looking at this and I was like, it looks good, but it doesn't, a lot of things don't stand out and pop to me. How can I change that? I mean, I had them all three lined up and I was like, it doesn't look right. So, oh wait, that's 421. 521. Okay. Oh yeah, and then I really started going to town on it, getting textures put on. I know I said this is modeling live, but honestly, I think it's fun to just go back and kind of look back at where we started and where we're at now, and just having a good talk about it, telling you kind of all the ins and outs with it. So, smoothing group issue going on right here, of course. A lot of issues and baking issues and everything. I was baking in the 3DS engine and it doesn't work really good. Really, if you can get Substance Painter, do it. Substance Painter bakes so well. Oh yeah, so there's no corrugation either. That's another good way to tell, like, the good legacy stuff. And I basically put this project away for another couple months. And then I brought it back out again because I was like, yeah, I'm bored. Let's get some stuff done. Then I really went to town. I mean, this is when I started mapping everything, so you can see this is the mapping process for this. And I'm pretty sure this ended up in a couple modeling live videos. So, oh yeah, there's the old bearing caps. I don't know if you can see that very well. If we zoom in, you can see very basic, very crappy, very dumb. And if we come to this one, now we got a good looking one. So I was proud of that. That was fun to figure out triangles in 3ds Max. Equilateral triangles. Had to do a lot of math for that. So if you're going to be doing this, prepare to use geometry. So I'm glad I did well with geometry. So here's some, it's got textures on it. And they weren't awful. Wasn't terrible. Spoiler. Wasn't awful at all. I mean, we're really getting into this. I'm starting to texture this thing. I'm starting to go to town with it. I'm having a blast. Here it is with the textures on the bogies. It's looking great. Here it is with some weathering now. I mean, I was having a fun time with this. Get this going on, this and that. It was just fun. Here it is. It's just really started getting some stuff going. Honestly, that could have been something pretty good. But again, we're dealing with a lot of issues. I mean, this is where we start seeing some of the shortcomings of the legacy models and also how I'm doing my detailing and everything. Although I like the effects that I got here. The Pyle National Company, Chicago, USA. I made that in Photoshop and it came out pretty good. So a lot of cool stuff comes from this. And it's how you learn. This is when we started realizing some issues. So the bolts didn't really line up quite right. They didn't look quite right. Things just didn't come off quite right with the coach. So we started looking at fixing a bunch of things. Started looking at, I mean, the glaring issue was these class lights. That's basically what got me to say, you know what, we need to go back and reevaluate what we're doing. That's when I realized I could be a little less conservative and a little more free to really just model stuff in. So that prompted a big change. So we started looking at updating the body. So first off, I needed to get the corrugations up top. I needed to get these class lights fixed up and start getting stuff sort of fixed up. Because again, a lot of the HEP MU receptacles, I mean, that stuff was all legacy stuff, and wasn't looking too great, but wasn't looking too bad. You know, could have been better. So I think the thing to go look at now is in my reference photos. I have a bunch of just screenshots of the updates that I was doing. So here's the first major step. This is all one piece. So I updated the pilot to all be one piece with the coach. I finally fixed the class lights to fit and look better. Like, I actually looked up some diagrams of how it looked and modeled those in. So that came out really good. I made a lot of good progress on that. And started looking up how to do the corrugations and everything. And if you're interested, I actually have a tutorial on that. And again, this shows that it's all kind of one piece, and this is how I did it. Yada, yada, yada. And it was mainly to update that mesh. So, finally got the corrugation thing to work properly, and then it was all about just editing it and fixing it. So that just shows a couple of the deals going on there. Horizon reference, where were we? We were at 11:02. Okay. So at some point in all this mess, you all know I've been updating stuff, going through, fixing things, getting things changed up and everything. The MU and HEP receptacles was a big step in the right direction, and you're going to notice there's some bolt details that are modeled in now instead of textured in. The pilot is starting to look fairly decent, and there's just a lot of good stuff coming from this. I updated part of the mesh for the compressor unit to make it look better, to make it look right. Fixed a lot of the smoothing groups, so I made those look right again. I updated this little cylinder thing to work properly, and again, just overall wanted to make this look a lot better. And smoothing groups make a world of difference, folks. If you don't know how to do smoothing groups, learn how to do smoothing groups. Another big thing that I wanted to work on was a modeled out vestibule. So I modeled in the brakes, the support beams and everything, and I actually put in the handrails because I noticed that's something that you can see. So I modeled it in to look a little bit better, more correct to the prototype. I don't know if you see this as well, so I updated this little bit where the step light is to be more prototypical, look better. So that is no longer a legacy item. So and this is where we see a lot of the things start really getting upgraded. Horizon 2. You can see I was adding lights, kind of just updating things. And the way I do it is I work on one side first and then just mirror it on the other side. That way I don't have to model it twice. Makes it a lot easier. You can kind of see the class lights look a lot better now. You can kind of see it. There's some bolt details now modeled in, so they're perfectly spaced. The right amount of bolts are on it. And on top of that, we have the class lights sitting in the proper spot now. And the other thing we updated was the gangway. So, but that would also, this version of the gangway would later be updated. So I wanted to make it look a little more 3D, a little more, nicer. So upgraded that, and it looked great. Here we are getting close to finishing up those updates. Got the new HEP, MU receptacles and everything. Just fun reminiscing on all this, going back. Welcome back, Big Mind Creator TS. It's nice to have you back. Now that you're back, give me 1 second. I'm actually going to go get a glass of water, because I'm just sharing stories about kind of the legacy of the Horizon Coach now. So I'll be right back. Honestly, at some point I wanna have just a time, drink some beer, and just tell some modeling stories, chat with people. I've been thinking about this. I have a modeling Discord. It's a lot of fun. It's not super active, but it's active. We talk, we chat. Thinking about being a little more open to having, non-content creators involved in that, to just sit down and, probably not a good idea. It's a great idea. Are you kidding me? Have some people just sit around, be able to chat, have a beer, tell modeling stories, this and that, Are you kidding me, man? Nah, I won't get too drunk. So, getting back to the stories here, though, and if you want to check out that modeling chat Discord, it's should be in the link in the description. So, just a lot of good upgrades happening. I'm looking at this now, and I'm seeing this little gate thing, and I was like, gosh dang, that looks like a piece of junk. But I need to work on the corrugation first. So, got the corrugation done, got all that modeled in. Fantastic. Getting there. Alright, and then somewhere down the line, I changed the gate too. It's like, that needs to be updated and fully modeled properly. And then I think also you'll notice the so it's not here. These are still the legacy grab irons. These are not the legacy grab irons. And you can tell they're not the legacy grab irons because the curvature is a little bit more curved rather than just a straight 90 degree. And there's also, we're missing the things, because I was going to update those too. Everything is getting updated here. And I think I actually updated... I updated this. I don't know when I updated that though. I definitely did it when I did the new bogies though. So, just so you know, there are 4 bogie variants that I have modeled for this Horizon, and I can show you the version 1 later. Alright, and then we threw all the underbody detail back on, so back to having legacy stuff, but now it looks a little more updated. I also got the wiring for the HEP to kind of flow through the underbody, so you can kind of see that now, which is pretty cool detail, and it looks more in-depth. You're seeing more and enjoying more eye candy. Here I updated the waste retention drain caps. They just used to be a simple circle, but then I put the locking things on. What happened to Patrama 25? He is still around. He's still doing stuff. In fact, if you go back and watch when I was talking about Bogies 2.0, it was Patrama who had lent me his Metroliner bogies to look at. But no, I still chat with him from time to time. Cool guy, working on some stuff. Can't discuss any much more than that, but he's still around, still cooking, doing a lot of good stuff. So a lot of interesting things happening with Underbody. A big fight now is to update everything, make it all look good. And then again, just some beauty shots of kind of the completed work. Still getting through, getting the windows fixed and getting all that detailed in. More underbody changes, getting everything to fit right, look right, be right. So just a lot of fun, awesome stuff. You'll notice this electrical box right here. If you look at all 3 variants of the coach, so if you look at all 3 of the variants of the coach, that box is actually thinner. But on the Horizon baggage car, you can tell that's a legacy item because it's still Mr. Thick Boy. So if you're paying attention, kind of an interesting thing you can point out to your friends and family when this Horizon gets released. So yeah, that's fun there. Oh yeah, some weird stuff happened here. The bogies. So I was like looking at my bogies 3.0 and I said, look, that just ain't gonna do. So I started working on version 4.0. And the one thing to note with Horizon bogies is that they are not just one thickness throughout, and I will show you that on the model. So, I mean, here we are, we're looking at a lot of stuff. Yeah, no, what are you meant to do with that information? I don't know what you're meant to do with that information, but do with it what you will. So the bogies on this new version, you will notice, well, okay, so look away right now because this isn't necessarily the completed, this is the completed 4.0 version. But the big thing to notice about these is how they get thicker towards the center of the bogie, and that's to accommodate the spring sizes. So a lot of people, when they model the GSI G70 bogies, they don't have that. They keep it the same thickness or the same width all the way down the bogie frame, and then when they go to make the springs don't look right because they're thin, but in the prototype they're actually wide. So to accommodate for that, and I have photos of this too, the thickness goes out, and that was hard to achieve with this bogie frame, but it gives it a lot more depth, and it's just a really awesome thing. So you can kind of see that right there, and then there they are with the speed wiring. And then another thing to note about the speed wiring is, again, actually kind of modeled the extra thickness to where the sensor would be, and then I put the screws and everything for the wire receptors, or the holders, not the receptors. I'm a dingus. And then, I mean, of course, there's some obvious changes to the bogie frame, but we can get into that later. So this is just when we really see a big spike of things are changing, things are getting better, things are being fixed and upgraded because they really needed it. You know, so here we are again. A lot of good underbody detail stuff, and now we're back to, I think, square one. What is this? Horizon Sexy. Oh yeah, I think I was just showing off the corrugations. So, getting back, I have to map everything, get everything fixed. What is this? Oh yeah, so smooth. This is showing off the smoothing groups. The testing for my whatever. So a lot of interesting stuff that kind of came out of this. The next big thing now was the coupler. So y'all remember the first version of the coupler that I made myself, not the one that was handed to me. As another thing, as a modeler, I wanted everything to be my own model. I didn't want to, you know, piggyback off of someone else's stuff. So that led me to also redoing a lot of things. The coupler, though, that was a big one. That's a big doozy. Got bored, sat down one night, and said, look, I gotta model this new coupler because my other one, I tried fixing some of the smoothing group issues, and that didn't happen. That wasn't working out at all for me. So I was like, you know what? We're gonna go back. We gotta change it. So here's the Buppler 2.0. One of the few things to only have 2 versions to it. Other things have only 1 version, but, you know, to go into it with only 2 is unheard of. Anywho, this one I wanted to be nicely detailed. I wanted it to have all the bells and whistles and look nice. So you can kind of see, for lack of a better word, it's one piece. Shows that here. This actually is modeled properly to show like it goes all the way through. Looks really cool. I actually modeled everything to look super nice. The pocket side piece thing, that didn't stick. I didn't like it. Actually did the knuckle too. So at some point, there it is, I fixed it and changed it to something that looked a little bit more realistic. So there it is with everything kind of molded together. So this coupler was a pain in my butt to model, but it was fun. It was a good exercise. I got some legitimate diagrams that showed the different views, got a lot of good reference photos, and studied a lot of different couplers. I think this is the Type H type locking coupler or something like that. So, bada bing, bada boom. Fixed a lot of the issues that I had with my original one, and overall it just looks a whole lot better. And when this thing is like baked in Substance Painter, it looks really good. So, yeah, you can kind of see. How it's all modeled together. Knuckles fully modeled. Got the pocket looking just nice. Nice and dandy. So, that was like the next big change. And after the coupler was modeled, I mean, really it just came down to updating the coupler cut bar pieces, so you can kind of see that there. I'm trying to think if there's any more relevantly decent
renders to really look at. Nah, not really. So to get this all kind of buttoned up, looking good. So this is what the new one looks like. I fixed all of the tubing for the cut bar, and I actually modeled the cut bar to line up and match with the coupler piece here. So this part could move to show like, oh, the coupler's dropping the pin or whatever, and to open up and everything. So again, just a lot of updates, and you can kind of see the mounting mechanism. This is all one piece too, which is pretty sweet to say. Same thing with this one. This is all one singular piece. Those were a pain in the butt to model, but I got some diagrams that allowed me to do that. So it was really nice getting to do that. So that was 12/10/2020. The next one we're looking at is just some basic renders I wanted to show off. Like, oh yeah, here's some of the stuff that I got done. Here's some of the stuff that I did. You can actually see where I detailed even more with the gate, safety gate at the end. Just, again, it's just a general render showing off some of the different things with the coach. I'm not sure if I did anything with the interior yet. That's kind of the question. And I think, oh yeah, Cursed Horizon. This is the Pope Mobile Horizon. This is not for release, unfortunately. I don't think you guys could handle that. But, you know, you could put your cars up top. You could put the Pope in the back. You could put the people in the bottom. It's great. And this is when I started working on the Horizon baggage car, which was pretty fun. Making a fictional coach car variant that has never been done before. I just got some more beauty shots of the Horizon. Again, oh yeah, and this is when I re-updated the the gangway to have a little bit more depth to it. Got the actual screw holes there, and then on top of that, I modeled in this plate because that was a pain in my butt to like actually texture in, just because the texturing was so low resolution for that, and that's just because of scaling issues. So, anywho, those were the big major updates to this coach, and then I started kind of just going to town with stuff. I mean, updating the seats. Actually, no, where did I start doing that at? Because where's Ashton at? Ashton was just in here. So he helped me figure out what I wanted to do with my seats. I just gotta find it. That's not the seats. The darn high res. Oh man, my meme Horizon. Oh yeah. So this is also part of the major updates. Making the chairs. So thank you to Ashton for helping me out with these. So he gave me some good references to look at, and shoot, yeah, pretty straightforward. They're lower poly than his are, so he actually modeled in the trays and animated them so they can flip out and everything. I was like, I'm not going to do that. Oh yeah, he also made it so the seats can recline, move, and rotate around. So when he releases his Amfleet coach, you got to check it out. It's chock full of little goodies and just fun things to mess around with. I've been working with it in trains, and there's always something. There's always something cool to do and some really cool detail to find if you're looking around. So definitely, if you get a chance to check that out, follow him on YouTube and check out his Amphlete. But yeah, I mean, basically a lot of the major upgrades that were happening here. Just buttoning things up, getting some things fixed up, detailing stuff. So I re-detailed these little class lights here, made them look a little bit better. No longer legacy. I fixed the box so it's not thick anymore. Another thing that I don't know if it shows up and renders very well are the door handles. I made them a little less pokey, except for that part. That part will stab you to death. I mean, if you fall on that, you're a dead man. So watch your hands when you're working around this Horizon, man. So really, I mean, this is all just about getting things buttoned up, getting things where they need to go, fix any mesh issues, and just a lot of underbody detailing. I mean, that's what a lot of this has been now up until this point, because I got everything on the interior looking pretty good where I want it. Very basic stuff. I didn't want to go too far with the interior because, again, that's just not where the goal is for this coach. This coach is mainly like eye candy on the outside and have it pulling behind a P42 or something. So just trying to think of any pertinent updates. One of the big things I changed are the filler boxes where the filler caps for the water tank go to. Made those a little bit more detailed, a little bit more, nicer, modeled in the actual cap that goes there. So wanted that there. Also modeled in a couple more hoses, a couple more details, fixed all the smoothing groups. Again, here's the updated caps. And this is all legacy. So this is, for what it was, the waste retention tank was ahead of its league when I first modeled this. Because this is version 2.0. Got my... Ooh, this was a fun one. Getting this bracket and everything for the... This basically protects the control valve from any flying debris and anything that could break it or hurt it. So fixed that up, got that looking really nice. Again, just a lot of major underbody details, additions. There's apparently a second little air reservoir tank or something right here, so I modeled that in for the coach. Put some boxes where it needed some boxes for conduit and everything. Got the conduit looking really good too. As good as it's gonna get. I mean, you're not gonna see a good portion of this stuff. So, and I think the biggest, nicest thing, again, and we'll look at this real quick, are the bogies. These things, spent a lot of time getting them to where they need to be, and it's just really rewarding to see a good representation of the GSI G70s finally there. So this shows the brake calipers with the brake pad system and everything. Actually have some hollowed out holes in the bogie frame and everything. So again, looks really good, and I'm very, very happy with where this coach has come. So yeah, so that's it for the Horizon coach car. A lot of little goodies and things here. Again, here's a good render of the Horizon baggage. Pretty darn cool. Got some renders of the coaches in Substance Painter just to show off some of the details. You know, a really poor rendering of some of the interior details. Just, again, just to show some stuff off. And I think I updated this one. Yeah, and then the next thing we were working on is just connecting HEP stuff. So that's kind of the big, long talk about where the modeling process has kind of come for me with the Horizon Coach Car. I mean, we start looking at a lot of the true legacy things that we were working on. I mean, let's see if I can find it. Yeah. I have a very interesting file that I'll show. It's called Horizon the Beginning. Right now this is just Amtrak Horizon. So let us see if we can see where any of my legacy items have come from or not. So yeah, this is a interesting scene, to say the least. This is probably one of the first versions of the Horizon Coach Car that really just kind of shows off where it started off. This is practically where it started for me. Just not really where it started, but kind of where it was going. I guess is, for lack of a better term or something. I mean, like, look, this is what it is. Low poly. I mean, 46,000 polys. This is all just a bunch of random junk. It doesn't even, none of it looked right. None of it felt right. I mean, this is what we were dealing with. Just a junky coach car, to be honest. And this would have been good enough for a lot of you. Like, had I released this, a lot of people still would have been happy. And it's crazy to think, like, you know, they would have been happy with this. I'm not happy with this. Is why I redid it 100 times. That's how basic the underbody was. This is this is the first version of the bogies, for crying out loud. This is bogey version like 1.0. This shows again where it all started. Wasn't bad, but it wasn't great, and it helped me grow and learn. So keep that in mind if you're doing your own models. I mean, you gotta start somewhere. Don't be daunted by it. You just gotta attack it sometimes. So here's this. It's a milestone, alright, man. And it's surreal to think, like, this is where we started. Well, not necessarily where we started. Where we started, oh man, I got Horizon for Chance, Cuts example, low budget. Interested to see that one. But then I really do, I want to check out this one called, where is it? Where is it? Horizon the Beginning. Check that out later. So, oh yeah, this is, yeah, low budget. I called it low budget for a reason. So, these were my MU receptacles. 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces. Very low poly. Like, alright, good enough. I wouldn't even consider it good enough. Where's my coach? Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Oh yeah. I was learning chamfers. That was fun. Learning that. This piece right here, this little step plate. So this is interesting. On the new model, I've opted to not mess with this little step thing because it's really weird and difficult to model, and I have no idea how to do it. So I didn't even worry about it. But this little piece right here is hollow on the actual thing. So on mine it is actually hollow. Oh yeah, this is great. These grab irons are just fantastic. So this is actually technically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 parts before I learned how to do all of my piping and tubing with the line tool rather than just individual cylinders. Oh my gosh. And then here is the vestibule, or not the vestibule, the gangway. It was just a simple piece. That's all it was. Very, very simple. Not bad, just simple. I think I remember when I first did this, when I first modeled in the air compressor, or not the compressor, but the condenser unit right here. Like, that was a big deal. That was huge. I was like, no one's ever done something this crazy. Well, people have, but I just never noticed. So I thought this was like big deal, awesome stuff, sweet. Nah, it really wasn't. Now that you look back on it, somehow I figured the waste or the water tank was a cylinder. I was wrong. Oh yeah, and the air reservoir with no piping and just some random boxes. Here's the control valve. The waste retention tank. Nobody's done this on Horizons. Insert no one has ever done that quote. Oh man. Oh yeah, and then here's me trying to make the freaking... I still am not messing with that. I'm not gonna do it. But there's like a little pump thing that... Yeah, it's just dumb. Just dumb. Here's the HEP little jaggedy edge things. I don't even know. And then this, of course, has so many issues with it just because I use the Probolion tool. And here's what it looked like. This is what the body of it looked like. Here's my attempt at making the gate for the very first time. It's all milestones. And this is where it started. This is probably why there's a lot of issues, because there's a cut and nothing to really support it. So same thing over here. Nothing. I mean, this thing is 16,000 polys. Whoop-de-doo. But it was a start. Low budget. Horizon the beginning. Let's see what that's about. Man, I might actually start drinking here in a second, looking back at these old models. Because holy cow, just a lot of old crap. Here it is. This is the beginning. The very first pilot that I did for this coach. I mean, is the very first body. Trying to figure out how to do an interior for it and everything. I mean, I guarantee if I went back and I tried to map this, do the UV mapping, I would kill myself. Not saying anyone should do that. If you're really considering hurting yourself for any reason, please get help and support. I'm very serious about that. But
I mean, like, okay, so yeah, this is what I'm talking about. I never set up my models properly for Pro Bullion, and this is the sort of issue that happens. And somehow I missed that while I was modeling it. But like I said, if I tried to map this thing would be just a horrid mess right now. But that's the beginning. That's where this started. That's where this project began. That's where it started. So, look at that. It didn't used to be as good as it is. That's just that's how it goes. Here's the grab irons. I think they're a little bit more updated, but from what I understand too, yeah. This is also before I learned about snaps, so everything is like guesstimated and sort of like, so there's a gap there. There's an obvious gap in the mesh, and you can kind of see like that's where I use multiple cylinders to do this. Same thing over here. I mean, this is all just, I don't even know why I have this. Keeps me humble, I guess. I think one of the big interesting things if this thing will load. Yeah, I got Trains Railroad Simulator 2019. Here's one of the condenser models that I made? Question mark? It's not bad, actually. I kind of like how this bad boy looks. This is nice. You gotta start somewhere, though. Bugs. The bugs. Yeah, I got Train Simulator 2019. I use that. So, it's fun. I don't have any decent routes though, so I really don't mess around a whole lot in it right now. Oh yeah, this is Bogey 1.0 1.0. Again, just a lot of jazz. Here we'll look at something that I'm working on right now. Don't know when I'm gonna start working on it again. I have to be in the mood for it. Because this mesh has been giving me all the trouble. But we're working on a BBL. I already updated the coupler and the HEP and MU stuff. I got that looking good, so I'm happy about that. But other than that, I mean, like, yeah, it's... Oh yeah, and I updated that thing. So yeah, well, shoot, I just lost it. There it is, there it is, there it is. We're getting there. Yeah, this is a pain in my butt. What? Where'd it go? I don't know why it's doing this. It just is.
thing is so broken. I don't know what the deal is. But yeah, I got a lot of good stuff going on. So kind of excited to continue working on this and get a couple of these. Really though, I want to make it something very clear, guys. This is just a generic. This is just going to be a generic version of this coach. So, I mean, I'm not going to try and make real specific details to every specific railroad that uses this, just to make something generic, fun, a little more high detailed than what's kind of out there right now, and then, you know, going from there. Have fun, right? So slowly but surely that'll come along. There's the bucklers, compressor control valve, coupler 2, electrical jazz, grab irons, HEP cables, the old HEP stuff, Horizon beginning, Horizon final. What? Apparently, I have a file called Horizon Final. We're gonna look at that real quick. Probably cry a little bit. Nobody's got 2 hours to sit around and listen to this and listen to me ramble. So I apologize to y'all, but you know, sit in if you want to sit in. Yeah, this is where details really start coming together. So like when I made this version of the compressor, even though this is technically an Amfleet compressor, when I made this version of this, I was really happy with it because I haven't seen anyone do it to that degree of like detail. And I mean there's a good reason for it too. So a lot of people when they're looking at stuff, oh yeah, you can tell I pro bully on this. Oh yeah. Oh, that was bad move. So yeah, this would have been the like what I would have released to you guys had this actually been the final Horizon, but it's not. I already cut the shadow plane down too. Was ready for that, but you get all these details coming in. This is where I really started focusing a lot on underbody detail, getting all that looking nice. I made this control valve that isn't the prototype, and it still isn't the prototype. I promise you, it's definitely not the prototype, but you only know it because I told you. But yeah, a lot of just different cool piping and stuff, and at some point somebody gave me, ooh, hold on, no, okay, that's, I was like, do I have legacy stuff sitting around here too? So yeah, I did a lot of updates, a lot of crazy stuff. That's where it started though. Let's actually look at where modeling really started. I have fun going back and looking at these. So, I don't know if you enjoy this. I enjoy it. It's fun to talk about. So, again, I also understand no one's going to sit for 2 hours and, like, actually. So, I made a house, kinda. Oh, yeah, look at that doorknob. Fantastic. I had no idea what I was doing. One of my favorite, well, no, not a favorite. One of the learning things that I learned 3ds Max on was how to make a sign. So my friend Zach basically helped me design this. Now, again, this is before I really knew about snaps or anything, so everything was like guesstimated, and you can see there's like obvious gaps and everything, and you know, that's all right for what it is. Eventually I learned about snaps and I definitely started using them. So this is where he taught me about chamfers, how to do chamfering, how to do cylinders, squares, and all that stuff. So this is one of my very first models and how I learned some of the basics. And there's a bunch of other stuff that I wish was included and kind of expanded on in that, but I think it gave me a good way and a good foundation to sort of learn for myself. And I think that's a big thing that we really need in the content creation community, is people who can, not necessarily go in depth with how to do something in, say, 3ds Max, but how to go at it in a way that promotes somebody to go rambling promotes somebody to learn for themselves. So teaching them terminology, I think, is a big thing, so that they can look it up. Like, you got that thought in your head and you're like, man, I know what I need to do, but I don't know what it's called. So like chamfering, I want to round the edges. How do you do that in 3ds Max? So here's my relay shed that I was working on. Fun. So I learned a little bit more about like actual terraforming, how to do all this cool stuff. And I know there was an explanation as to why there's these lines going here and there, but I honestly forgot. And oh, I do it differently now. I would go at that entirely differently. Maybe we can all work on maybe I can do a live stream of a relay cabinet, and that'll be pretty good. Alright, here's a fun model. So this is one of my first completed legitimate models that I did for 3ds Max. So this taught me how to use the line tool, extrude, how to clone stuff and everything. So I made some tracks. They're not great, but they're not bad. So yeah, it's got a lot of issues with it, and I'm not sure exactly where some of them kind of came from. So you can see there's an obvious gap right there in the tie where it sits. I mean, it is what it is. This is pretty good for my first 3D track. So this is where you gotta start. This is where you have to sit down and you gotta play with it. It gets so daunting, and I understand this. You get into 3ds Max, you got nothing to go off of, and you're just like, man, what are we gonna do? It gives me an idea to do something here. I think this will be fun. I think this will spice things up just a little bit for this stream. And I think I can do a video on it later that I think people would enjoy. So let's dabble in 3ds Max. Let's mess around. So you got nothing going on. You're sitting at home. You got 3ds Max or your modeling software pulled open. And one of the issues that I ran into is, where do I start? Like, I'm ripping my hair out. This is how far I get. Say, alright, I have a box. Alright, what do I do with this box? Or I have a sphere. What do I do with the sphere? I know how to make a cylinder, but I mean, what do I do with these? Okay. So we start out. We got 3ds Max doing its thing.
We made some shapes. It's fun. We can't really do a whole lot with these shapes. We can go to the Modify tab, and this shows us a whole bunch of like parameters. Alright, well, how do I make a box into... let me see if I can find a good example of this. So how do I turn a box, a simple box, into a table or a chair, or, I mean, I'm trying to think of really good details on the coach to show off. I mean, how do I turn a box into this entire coach? How do you do that? Well, first off, I like to use the parameters as a kind of a starting point. So you want to know your scaling, you want to know your sizing for everything. You want to have a general idea of what you're going to make. So let's dabble and let's make a relay cabinet. Why not? I got time. You want to sit down and watch this? Relay cabinet. And we're going to type in wayside. So we're going to get some pictures, some reference photos here. Apparently people like making relay cabinets and Legos, and that is all I can find. So let's type in railroad relay cabinet. Alright. So I think here's what we're looking at. I like this one. So how are we going to turn this simple box into a little less simple box? So we got to figure out the shape of it. We got to figure out our sizing. So I'm going to use the parameters. Our length, you know, a relay cabinet isn't actually going to be 55 feet. I think it's going to be like, what, from here to that, or my arm span? I'd say about 5 feet. We'll go 5 feet. The height of it, I probably is a little bit taller than me, so we'll put like 6 feet. Well, not the width of it's not going to be 6 feet, but the height is 6 feet. Or we could do 6 feet on the width if we wanted to, but I'm thinking this, for this specific version, I think it's going to go about 3 feet. So again, it's eyeballing, guesstimation, really probably 2 feet if you ask me. Doesn't have a lot to hold. So there we go. And now I'm gonna give us a good center point. So here's our basic shape. This is what we're working with. Alright. It's fun. It's looking so far so good. So this is where you have to be creative. You have to think ahead. Sometimes there's tools that you can use to do this. So we have our length segments, width segments, and height segments. That basically, if I turn on edge faces, that's always good to have. So this adds that. It's a good tool, you know, if you know that you're going to be doing certain items. In this case, we really don't need it. So now we need to make this box into something that we can play with and mold and shape. So what we're going to do is we're going to go down to convert. Okay? And we can take this box and we can right click on it, and it will also show NURBS, editable poly, editable patch, editable mesh. Editable mesh works. I don't recommend it. I always start with poly. It doesn't add sections into your mesh that you just make things so much more complicated to deal with. So we also have our different views here: top view, side view, front view. It's all a bunch of great stuff. So first thing that we're gonna do is What are we gonna do? Alright, I know what we're gonna do. We're gonna make the doors. So, real quick, I mean, we're still on... Well, no, we have this as an editable poly. So, I guess we'll start with this then. Then we'll work on the doors. So, to make this an editable poly, you know, you right-click, you make it an editable poly. It's a fun time. I'm going to try and just do this eyeballing it too, so I can read comments and stuff. You can mess with the vertices, the edge, the border, the polygon, or the element. Polygon is your individual faces. The border, unfortunately, I can't show that right now because there's no border to really choose. Edges is pretty self-explanatory. You can do edges. Where is it? I'm going to turn that on. Why isn't it working? There. No, something's not right. Because it should. There it goes. I don't know why it wasn't working before. So I can select the edges, do all the different diddly dads, and vertices. I like working with vertices a lot. It's super easy to manipulate a mesh by the vertices. But this is where dabbling happens. This is where you have to start with 3ds Max or any program for that matter. Blender's a big one too. Start out by dabbling. Start out by just figuring out what you want to do with this. So first thing I want to do is I want to make the top portion of this slanted because I don't want rain getting into my relay cabinet. Alright, fantastic. We're looking good. The next thing we want to do is find a picture of the relay cabinet again. Because I don't know what I'm doing actually. Here's a good picture of it. Alrighty, so now I'm actually going to wait to do that because that'll come later. I'm going to delete this. So this creates an area for a border. I actually don't want to do that yet either. What do I want to do? Man. So this is where you got to be thinking ahead of what you want to do. So I need to make kind of the roof section of it. That'll be easy enough to do. I'll take this, convert it to, well, it's already converted. I'm going to clone it. Clone it as a copy instance. I forget what that does. I don't do it often. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to scale it out a little bit just so it faces out. I'm going to bring that in a little bit too. On both sides. So that looks pretty good. And now I'm going to just take this, and you can set up spacer blocks where you actually measure out the thickness and everything, or you can just be like me and do this. So that's kind of a fun way of looking at this. So we're making the roof section. First thing I'm going to do, so I'm going to maintain that right now. I want to add some chamfers. So chamfers are a good way to round the edges on this. Orthographic. Much better. I'm going to go to chamfer. So you can do this where you just chamfer it like that, click and drag, but you really don't have a lot of freedom over like the details of the chamfer. So we can do quad chamfer, or we can do a normal chamfer. Start out with standard chamfer. Typically, if you have more intricate models, you're going to want to use quad chamfer because that just helps smooth things out a little bit better. But it's a lot more involved too. So I don't want this being 1 inch necessarily. So I want this to kind of be within the confines of that. And by the looks of it, I'll just put it at 0.5 inches. Guesstimate there, and then I'll bring the edges out. So when you're modeling, you want to make your edges, I mean, again, this is where dabbling happens. Mess around with it. For this type of model, I would
probably just do 3 edges because I really don't need a whole lot, you know, to get the point across it. So select that. I'm going to go up here, select that. I'm going to deselect that by holding Alt Control. So if you want to select everything, hold Control. If you want to deselect, hold Alt. And then I'm going to do a little chamfer on here. And this is probably where I want to use quad chamfer. I'll set this to 0.5. That sets the chamfer up properly. And you can already see what I mean when it changes the parameters of your chamfer. So when you have more intricate models happening, you're going to want to use quad chamfer, like in this case. So I think this is a good opportunity to point that out, is that quad chamfer for more intricate models. So I already had a chamfer done, and I wanted to put a chamfer on top of a chamfer. That is what I consider to be there's a lot more going on. So here's kind of our weird looking roof section, whatever. And then I'm just going to, well, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to select this. I'm going to bring it down, just kind of over that. If I wanted to set it perfectly with this line right here on this edge, I would go up here to my snaps toggle, and you can go through the different settings by right clicking on it. Midpoint and vertex is typically what I use the most because that's what works best. But you can also select other things that work in your instance. So again, dabble, figure it out, you know. That's what this is. It's about experimenting and everything. Yo, are you still working on the I am still working on the Horizon Coach. What are we doing? If I pointed I gotta figure this out. You got trains. Feels like I'm back at Votech with chamfers and fillets. Yeah, no, or fillets. What, I don't know. I call them fillets sometimes. Yeah, no, I'm still working on the Horizon. Still got that going. The model's done, basically. It's ready for texturing. I did drafting in CAD all throughout high school, so I've been really big into like orthographic drawings, learning about chamfers, fillets, and all that jazz. It's great. It's a lot of fun. Yeah, no, they never teach you how to pronounce it. They never ever do. But welcome to class. So, got a bunch of stuff going on. Great. All right. So now we're gonna look at putting doors on this thing. And you can, there's the thing I like to do. So I made this second piece here, and I'm actually going to go through. I don't really want that. So what we'll do here, and I'll show you this. So go to isolate selection, and that isolates the object that you're on without doing an unhide all. It's really, really weird stuff. It's crazy, you know. Anywho, inset, it'll do this mess. We're gonna find probably 0.25 inches. Well, nah, 0.05 inches is a good one. I'll delete that. I'll actually select the border tool. So that's what that's for. The border tool basically says, okay, there's nothing on this side, but there's something over here, so it selects the border going around that. And then I'm going to hold shift, and I'm just going to drag up, and that starts a new kind of edge that's going on there. So I'll bring that up into there, and I'm not going to go too detailed with, this is a very basic model, and I'm going to hit cap. So that caps that off. That's just a cool little way to make a three-dimensional little rooftop. And isolate. So now we can see there's some depth to it. And now if I wanted to align this properly so that it's not just floating on top of it all willy-nilly, what I can do is I can go into this tab, and this is the hierarchy tab. Lets you go through and adjust your pivots, your working pivots and all this. I typically just do the effect pivot, center to object is the big one. If you enable snaps, you can actually snap it to certain pivot points.
So I'm going to select that corner vertex there. So that's lined up perfectly with that line. And now I'm going to get out of that little menu there, and I'm just going to drag it down. So now it sits perfectly flush with the top of that. I'm going to isolate this selection now, and we're going to start working on the doors. Don't affect children. No, definitely affect, well, yeah, don't affect the children. It's weird. Where is it? Don't affect children. There's parent objects, and then there's like the children objects. It's weird. It really is. It's a weird deal. Wow, now we got people jumping in here. It's crazy. Welcome everyone to my good grief. I just saw the truck meme. Good grief. Oh my lord. I just checked that. Yeah, but hey, welcome everybody. It's glad to have you now at this back half of the stream where I'm just dabbling, trying to just show off like how to dabble, how do you mess around. So you start clicking buttons, you start figuring stuff out. I'm going to go to the edge selection tool. I'm going to go to up here. So this is great. Polygon modeling, modify selection. I really just use the edit thing, and Swift loop is great because this allows me to quickly make a loop. And I'm setting this up. Oh, yeah, I want that many sections. And now this is sort of how I do it because I want them to be perfectly spaced. So I want my doors to be let's do 1 foot and 10 inches. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just drag this and I'm going to align it roughly where I want it. So right about there. Now I'm going to go back to this selection. Yeah, that's the first thing I thought about that. Yeah. Nice. So I'm going to select the tool there. We're just dabbling. We're just messing around. This ain't going to be perfect. It's not supposed to be perfect. So, alrighty, there we go with that one. And now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just move the... Oh, that's not going to work. I'm going to convert this one to... Oh, you know what? There's an easier way of doing this. Slice. Select my... Oh, geez, no, I just want to do the widget slice plane. There. 90 degrees. Right down the middle. We're on 0, 0, right in half. Perfect. And then I'm just going to collapse that too. So this is your modifier list. This allows you to modify anything that you want to modify. You can do so much, you know, sarcastically too. So this will give us an opportunity also to look at welding vertices. The next thing that I would like to do now is we're going to do another inset on here. I do like 0.1 inch. Nah, let's do 0.25 inches. Yeah, that looks about right. So I'm going to delete that. Select my border tool. So what we essentially did is created an extra face. This does create extra polygons, but it gives you a basis for anchoring points to actually do this. So now I'm going to do this here. Da, 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 da. Shift, hold, that extrudes. And I'm just going to guesstimate. If you want to make that perfect, you can set up a special bounding, or what I call them like spacer blocks that are precisely cut to the proper size and everything. So there, we have a door. We got a door now. That's pretty awesome. And we didn't have to do a whole lot to get this to fit and work. So it's pretty great. Delete that. I'm going to go to Effect Pivot, Center to Object, because I really want that to be centered. But then I'm going to take this pivot, and I'm also going to zero it out on, I think, no, I want it zeroed out on the y-axis. We're going to go to our mirror modifier, and this is going to mirror it. So we're going to select which axis we want to mirror it on, and then copy it. Now, one thing you have to understand about this, if I select this, so this is objects, or the element selection, so this selects single objects, which is everything that is welded together. We have this object, and we have this object. We have two objects. We don't want that. We want this to all be one object. And a good reason for this is because of UVW mapping. When you map your UVs, it's so much easier when something is one object. So like getting these doors to be right and everything and just sit right. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to Vertex. Going to select them. Go to the weld thing here, settings, and set that down to 0.001 inch. That's the threshold. So say that the vertices that you select are, I'll show you. So if I select this and I weld it and I put everything at 4 feet, that's what happens, because it says anything within a 4-foot radius of this, it's just going to attach itself. So what you do is you turn that down as low as it'll go, which should be 3 decimal places, so 0.001 inch. And then you don't risk welding all of your vertices together. But now if we go and we look at these vertices here, it says vertex 15 selected instead of 2 vertices selected. And another kind of interesting byproduct of doing it this way, you could just select each individual one, you know, do this big selection and then just hit weld, but the weld threshold makes it go a little bit quicker. So then next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go here and we're just going to delete this because this is creating unnecessary faces. We don't need this, so we're going to remove those. We still have the vertices down the center as well, so we want to just clean that up and remove those vertices. Don't hit delete because then that happens. You want to remove them through the edit vertices menu. So here we go, there's that. Unhide, we're gonna just end the isolate there, and here's a really jank looking cabinet with the doors stuck. Okay, so hey, the doors are stuck. Guess what we can do? We can actually fix that. So we're gonna just select everything right here. We're gonna deselect these top vertices. We just want where the door is. So I'll control, and I'll hit those all at the same time. And now what we'll do is we'll just bring that down right there. So now it's below the little jank shed roof. And there we go. You got your cabinet. Pretty basic. You know, that's a relay cabinet. Now if we want to go and UV map it, I'm going to attach the ceiling to it just because I can do that right now. We're going to go unwrap UVW, open up the UVW editor, and we got this big mess of everything. So what I like to do, just to make it cleaner for the time being, is just flatten map. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select anything that has to do with these doors and just the doors. And we'll have this mapped in like under 5 minutes. So say I have a thing where I'm going to use the same thing over and over and over and over, like bolts. It's good to UV map one and then not have to worry about it later. And then you can just move it and not have to go and edit everything. So I'm going to map, flatten map. Just again, this makes everything kind of be a unified sort of deal. So now what I'm looking at here, when I select this, you see this purple line get highlighted. Okay, that's great. Select that, hit the stitch custom. Same thing, we're going to keep doing that essentially until we have all 4 edges. We got to move that out. If you want to select the whole UV island, double click on it and that lets you select that. Because if I just select this middle one and I start moving, you'll see it gets all janky. So I'll double click and I'll just move that to the side. We'll start working on these doors here. You just get into a groove after a while of doing this and you figure out the method. This is a pretty simple thing to look at and to do because we're dabbling with box shapes. When we get to the chamfers though, that's when you get into some issues where it just becomes really poorly done. So so now I'm going to select just the box, but now I don't want to have the door selected because we already mapped those. I'm going to go ahead, flatten map those. So you can see here's the cutouts. This would be the top. We'll worry about rotating that here in a little bit. So I'm going to take that edge and that edge. I'm going to deselect that. Go through. And we're just going through it like that. It's fun. So I'll take one edge and I'll just attach it to the back here. I would suggest if you're doing stuff this way, it's a good idea to go on the back end and remove these edges as well because they don't serve a purpose. The only edges that are serving a purpose for anchoring is where these doors are. And it's important to understand this is why we want those anchor points, so you'll see like this vertice here is connected to this vertice by an edge. So it does create more polygons, but this is important because this is a hole in the mesh. That's how 3ds Max reads it. And if it doesn't have an anchoring point, then 3ds Max and any 3D modeling program doesn't know where that hole sits, and it starts messing with textures, it starts messing with the mesh's integrity, and it's a whole big mess. And I think there's people who can explain it better, but it's important to understand that where you have a hole in your mesh, you have to have anchoring points, and it's important to pay attention to that. So there we go, we got this pretty much mapped out. It's important to remember where your seams are. So I have a seam here and a seam like so there's the seam right down there. So that means the textures will not line up. So you have to play that by ear. You're never going to be able to get it perfect all the time. So be okay with it and just find a discrete place where no one is going to see that and go from there. So I'm going to select these top edges. I think I deleted it. Oh yeah, and I also need to select this too because I want this there to be selected like that so I can connect it. I'll do that right there, and again it's the same thing. So again, I know this kind of seems like really weird, pointless, and just whatever. But the goal here with this little dabble session is to kind of show you some of the simple procedures and how to look them up for yourself when you get to that point where you need to figure something out. Like I need to figure out how to rotate this right. Hold Control
helps you rotate it in increments of 5. So there we go. We got that cabinet all set up. A really good tool is this thing. It's a plugin called Text Tools. It's free. Go get it if you can. It's wonderful to have. You can pack stuff. You can get it to normalize all the UV shells so it all matches up in the same sort of the scaling and whatnot. I like to use it for the checkerboard pattern because it's got a really good one right here, which allows you to see, you know, how things line up, not only how things line up, but how everything is oriented and the scaling too. So we'll see here. I will select these and I'll hit normalize the UV islands and it does for me, which is great. So now all of this and this is the same scaled. So now we're going to go here to this, and I'm going to hold shift and I'm going to select everything in the middle there, and I'm just going to move it out of the way because I really don't care about it right now. And now we got this, hold shift, that's that edge, so this is the top edge of that portion. So I'm going to show you something that's like really fun and kind of interesting and really weird when it works. When it doesn't work, it's just kind of eh. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. What I want to do is I want to select that. I think that's on the inside. I think that's all jazz that I don't want. Don't want that either. Deselect the whole thing right there. Okay. What do I have to? Okay, that's the edge and that's the inside. So should just have all of this selected right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this quick planar align on the z-axis and I'm going to hit that. Oh no, what's going on here? It's all weird and fuzzy and texture stretching. Well, I'm just going to hit relax. It's not going to be perfect, but you might hit it a couple more times actually. Yeah, it's going to be good enough. So yeah, you get some weird texture stretching there, so it doesn't work great. But at the same time, I mean, like, for all intents and purposes, it'll get the job done, especially if this is just going to be a metal texture with no writing on it. And just to save time right now, what we're in this little dabble session is this what I'm doing. I got some weird going on here too. So I'll select this and I'm going to do the same thing. Just a little quick planar mapping and relax. And it messed it all up. So I need to flip that. There we go. Sometimes you have to flip it so it reads weird. It's hard to understand. So if I did that's for another day. It's another day, another explanation. So I got all this going on, all this jazz. Alright, fun. Now we're just going to normalize the clusters. That way this is all one dealy-do. I'm going to take this. So now we have to get these doors to mash up. So you can see we're reading it upside down. So I'm going to select one of the doors. It's still doing its weird thing, and I'm just going to select it and rotate it 90 degrees. I messed up. I need to go another 180. So that's a good thing with these visuals that are provided with text tools. So again, I really like that tool. And then I like to place things as they show up on the model to make it easier to locate them, especially if I want to be nice to my reskinners. Or you can be mean to them. I paying a guy to texture the horizon, so I kind of want to be nice to him because he'll charge me more money. Nah, he's doing a great job with what he's got going on. Gives me more time to focus on the modeling aspect of the coaches and the logistics side of everything. And someone who's actually got experience in modeling and or not, well, he does model, but someone who's got experience in a paint program to actually do that. So what I'll do here is I'll just kind of move that down. It really doesn't matter there. So I got all this going on. It's pretty great. I'll just kind of line it up. It's like a jigsaw puzzle. That's all you're doing. Just a really weird looking, complicated jigsaw puzzle. And I'll just scale that up. And boom. We have officially we've done it. That's a box. So there's our little basic relay cabinet. It looks great. If we want to, we can apply a quick little texture to it. Then we'll go to our lights. So when you're doing renders, skylight typically is a good one to use. I'll take the environment color and I'll kind of tone it down so it's a little bit darker. I'll turn the rays down to 10. Rendering, we're going to go to render setup just to make sure advanced lighting. We want light tracer, common. We're going to set up our thing here. I think I typically do 1080 by 1920. I just typed that in wrong. And we'll just do a quick little render here. And I got it all messed up. My bad. Custom, where is it? There, HD video. That's better. Oh, something's not right. Something's not right. Render. We did something. Light tracer, no lighting plugin. Yeah, we're gonna try that again. Light tracer. Nope. Radiosity. Interesting. 1 minute. 1 minute real quick. I gotta figure out my actual settings for this because I forget. Because the way that I do it, and it works really good for me, is that if I want to do a render, I save the I save the same file and it saves the settings, and then I just delete everything and start building from there. So like it's got my orthographic, it's got just all the things that I like to have happen with it be done. Alright, so we're gonna do 2410 by 1356. I don't know why I have it like that, but I do. 2410, 1356, HD video. Advanced lighting, yeah, radiosity. Scanline render, quad 4, okay. Yeah, that's weird. Yeah, don't do light tracer, do radiosity, and hit cast shadows. Turn your samples. 10 to 15 tends to be good for renders. The higher the sample, the crisper and cleaner your renders will be. the lower, and I can demonstrate, the more fuzzy they get. But here, we'll do a quick render. Here is our live stream relay cabinet. It's great. Look at that. Frame it. Put it on your refrigerator. We're going to turn the sample down to 1 and then do a render. Yeah, that's what 1 looks like. Here's what 2 looks like. A little bit better. Do 5 just because. So, I mean, it's not terrible. You know, this just isn't a high poly model. So, I'm not going to save that. But I'll show you what like happens when you do it with a high poly. No. Hit escape if you need to cancel the render. Gotta find my skylight. This is fun. Here we go. Sky color. We're gonna just put it down to 1. Render. So, a lot of noise. Here's 5. So it takes a little bit longer when you have high poly models. So when you start, when I do my renders, I typically keep them 10 to test and 15 for like just general. Here's a cool shot of my render, you know, check out what I did, sort of thing. Or if you want to go all out, I think it goes up to 64. That's like money shots, the actual beauty shots for these coaches. I'll put them up to like 64, sometimes 25. You don't have to go too high all the time, but you know. So, anywho, it's been a long night. I know it's been a long stream as well. It's been real good. I've enjoyed sharing a lot of like what the Horizon Coach, you know, where it started, where it's come, kind of the story behind different little items with it, this and that, you know, having a good time doing that with you guys. And hopefully the Horizon project will just keep on going, keep on spinning, have things going good for it. So I also hope you guys appreciated the little dabble session at the end. I know it was a lot, just again, to kind of get you guys comfortable with, hey, you start out with a box. Look what we made. We made a fancier box. So I think that's an important part of, you know, starting out as modeling. It's daunting. You make that box and you got to figure out how to manipulate that box. You know, next we can look at how to do planar modeling, which is what I typically do, or I'll model off of a box. It's kind of the same concept. But you build off of that using extrusions, and that's a more advanced level thing. So, you know, if I do something like that, I'm going to have the expectation that a lot of you are going to understand a lot of the processes of 3ds Max. You know, save my voice and everything. But that's for another day. It's good to be back streaming, even though, you know, I don't stream for a whole lot of people. My audience isn't large. It's still nice to kind of sit in, talk with the people who are, you know, doing what they're doing, having a good time, joining in, getting to just see some cool things, and, you know, it is what it is. But again, I'm not active on YouTube much. I'm not active on social media much, but so it's expected that I'm not going to have that large of an audience, and I'm okay with that. You know, if it grows, it grows. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I can't make this my job. I just can't do that. So, you know, anywho, it's been good, guys. Have a good night. Stay safe, and I'll see you on the next stream. Take care.